right, welcome back, Little Warrior Churchers. Time for another daily Biting. Well, it hasn't really been a daily Bible reading, has it? Because I've taken some time off to reflect and do something with my workspace here. I put some insulation in here so it could have a better sound. Probably doesn't make any difference to you because I use a lot of programs, but it makes a lot of difference to me. Anyway, we're going to be in one of my favorite books today. It actually probably is my favorite, and we'll go into what that actually means. Let's go to Lord in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this day, and thank you for everything that you've given us. Help us understand. Oh my gosh, help us really understand what we're about to read, what's going on here, and what Solomon was trying to tell us and warn us about. In the name I pray. Amen. This is a really interesting book. And let's get into some of the reasons why. So we're going to be in Ecclesiastes, which he calls himself the preacher. Now, there's been a whole bunch of debate whether Solomon wrote this, and all of those have been pushed to the side. We all believe that Solomon wrote this because he even named himself, he was the son of David. He had great wealth, had great wisdom, and it all fits Solomon's narrative. One of the things that Solomon did as a kid, his dad died, who was David, and he asked the Lord for wisdom, which was one of the best things he could have done in his entire life. Or is it? Let's go to, and I don't normally do this, but it's important for this book to understand the narrative of what's going on. 1 Kings. We're going to go into 1 Kings first. 1 Kings chapter 3, 5 through 15, sorry. In Gibeon, Yahweh appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. Now, this is when Solomon is a little kid. He had just become king. Can you imagine being a king and a little kid? That has to be something. Yahweh appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, Ask for what I should give you. Oh, that the Lord would ask me that. Solomon said, You have shown to your servant David, my father, great loving kindness, because he walked before you in truth, in righteousness, and uprightness of heart with you. You have kept for him his great loving kindness, that you have given him a son to sit on his throne. And it is today. Now, Yahweh, my God, you have made your servant king instead of David, my father. I am just a little child. I don't know how to go out or come in. Your servant is among your people, which you have chosen, a great people that can't be numbered or counted for multitude. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? He was just a little kid, and even then, he is scared to be king. He needs wisdom to discern what to do with these people. This request pleased the Lord, that Solomon had asked the thing. God said to him, Because you have asked this thing, and have not asked for yourself long life, or not asked for riches for yourself, nor have you asked for the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern justice. Behold, I have done according to your word. Behold, I have given you a wise and understanding heart, so that it has been no one like you before, and after you none will rise like you. I have also given you that which you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there will be any among the kings of like you for all your days. So God gave him wisdom from the very beginning. He knew that Solomon was going to ask this. He gave him a wise heart, but he also gave him riches and honor. So that's when he was a kid. Let's look at Solomon when he became older. What happened? Now Solomon loved many foreign women together with the daughters of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Sidonians, the Hittites of the nations, concerning which Yahweh said to the children of Israel, You shall not go among them, neither shall they come to you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. It is written in Deuteronomy, and I should have gotten this verse, but it is written in Deuteronomy that they are not to go and marry outside the camp. Now, this is not a racial thing. This is absolutely not a racial thing. This has to do with worshiping other foreign gods that are not true, because Only God is the one true God. He would worship the other true God, and what would happen? Solomon joined to these in love. He had 700 wives. Man, 700 wives, princes, and 300 concubines. Now, the concubines, they were considered wives, just in a different way. His wives turned his heart away, which is interesting. His wives turned his heart away. When Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods. And this is exactly what would happen. We're going to look at this verse in Deuteronomy that says this. And his heart was not perfect with Yahweh, his God, as the heart of David, his father, was. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Malcham, the abomination of the Ammonites. Solomon did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight and didn't go fully after Yahweh as David, his father, did. It is interesting to note that David was a murderer and he was an adulterer. Doesn't say anything about those things about Solomon, does it? But it does say he worshipped other gods and he was not repentant towards the Lord when he did these things. And this is why the Lord talks about David better than he does Solomon, because David was actually repentant. Solomon, however, was not. We're going to look at the last thing, and then we're going to get to the book of Ecclesiastes. Deuteronomy 17:14-17. We're going to look at the Lord told him not to do this in Deuteronomy, and what they were supposed to do with the book of Deuteronomy is they were supposed to read it, I think every week in front of the whole nation. They were supposed to read this whole thing. When you have come to the land which Yahweh your God gives you and possess it and dwell in it and say, now this is Moses. This goes all the way back to Moses. So Moses is writing this. I will set a king over me, like all the nations that are around me. You shall surely set him whom Yahweh your God chooses as king over yourself. You shall set as king over you from one among your brothers. You shall not put a foreigner over you, who is not your brother. Only he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt. Solomon had a huge army. He had huge horses and huge chariots. Now, the Lord didn't want them to do this because he wanted the Israelite people to trust the Lord in what he's going to do, not trust chariots and horses. Horses and chariots would have been like tanks back then. Because Yahweh has said to you, should not go back that way. You shall not multiply wives to himself. Look at this. Interesting. He shall not multiply wives to himself, that his heart not turn away. He shall not greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. It says plainly here in Deuteronomy, he shall not do this. Solomon was wise, okay? We know that he knew the scriptures. He knows this is in here. He knows. He knows. He knows that this is in here, but he's not going to follow it. He wanted to follow it during his early days when he built the temple, but when he grew older and he got 700 wives, I can't even imagine, 700 wives and 300 concubines, he let them do whatever they want. He built, well, let's just see. Ecclesiastes, here we go. Now that we have the backstory of Solomon and what he did, we're going to see what he says at the end of his life. Because Solomon wrote Proverbs, what we have been going through every day. He knows the right answers because we've been reading Proverbs. He wrote Proverbs. He knows the right answers, but he's not following his own advice. And that's the problem. He wrote Proverbs. They think he wrote Song of Solomon. If it wasn't him who wrote it, it was about him. What else? We believe he wrote some of the Psalms. So he wrote a lot of good stuff, but at the end of his life, he becomes completely jaded towards everything. Verse 1, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. All is worthless is what it really means. Well, not really means, but we don't understand the word vanity sometimes. So it usually means just worthless. What does man gain from all his labor in which he labors under the sun? One generation goes and another generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Now, it's interesting to note that this book is all about man's wisdom. So if you believe that the Bible is all true, look at Ecclesiastes. Solomon says some untrue things. Because this book is all about man's wisdom, not God's wisdom. And that's the thing that we need to understand as we're going through this book. One generation goes, another generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The earth is not going to remain forever. It's going to pass away one day. The sun also rises, and the sun goes down and hurries to its place where it rises. The wind goes toward the south and turns around to the north. It turns around continually as it goes, and the wind returns again to its courses. The way I like to read this book is I like to see a man just walking back and forth, just mumbling to himself. Because I think that's exactly how Solomon was writing this book. He said, I got to write these things down. And he started getting up from his table and started pacing back and forth, saying, this doesn't make sense. Why are we here? Vanity of vanities. The wind goes toward the south and turns around to the north. It turns around continually as it goes, and the wind returns again to its courses. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Where does it go? To the place where the rivers flow. There they flow again. All things are full of weariness beyond uttering. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. That which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done again. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there a thing of which it may be said, behold, this is new? It has been long ago, in the ages that were before us. There is no memory of the former, neither shall there be any memory of the latter, that they're to come among those that shall come after. He's saying nothing makes sense. The wind goes to the south, comes to the north. What has been done before. Nothing is new. Verse 12, I, the preacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. And this is why we think this was Solomon, because David was the king in Jerusalem and Hebron. Solomon was only king over Jerusalem. So let's keep on going. I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom concerning all that is done under the sky. It is a heavy burden that God has given to the sons of men to be afflicted with. I've seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity. Solomon appointed himself. He wasn't appointed by God, which is kind of funny. Solomon appointed himself to see what was good to do here on this earth. And this is what he calls done under the sky, pretty much. Wisdom concerning all that is done as we live on this earth. It is a heavy burden that God has given to the sons of men to be afflicted with, to be on this earth. You can hear his depression just coming out. It's just funny. This man was given everything, and here he is just depressed. I've seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and chasing after the wind. That's quite a statement. Solomon was the wisest, the richest. It is said that Solomon had so much wealth that the stones around him were just covered. They were just silver. All the stones in the street were just silver. That's how much wealth this man had. Verse 15, that which is crooked can't be made straight, and that which is lacking can't be counted. I said to myself, behold, I have obtained for myself great wisdom above all those who are before me in Jerusalem. Yes, my heart has been great experience of wisdom and knowledge. I applied, just give me 1 second. I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this was also chasing after the wind, for in much wisdom is much grief. That's quite a statement as well. For much wisdom is much grief, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. That is a very true statement. I can tell you from experience, as reading the Bible, increasing in wisdom and increasing in knowledge about the Bible has made me more has made me more grief. I don't know how to put this. It has made me be more I don't even know. More grief, knowing the truth and seeing other people walk not in that truth. And I am not any better than anybody else. But what I would like to see in this world is people just to see truth for what it is. That's the only thing I want. Chapter 2, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also was vanity. Now this is something that I did. This is something that I did when I was young and foolish and dumb. I went out and partied all the time. And this is one of the reasons why I came to God, is because I found out from experience that it won't make you happy. It won't make your spirit happy. It'll make your, as the church says, it'll make your flesh happy. It'll make, for a time, but after that time is done, after you're done having sex or drinking, after that time's done, you feel awful. Your spirit feels awful because it's not feeding your spirit. And that's the point. And this is what Solomon is trying to tell us. So let's listen. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with mirth. Therefore, enjoy pleasure. And behold, this was also vanity. He had many parties. He had many wives. He had probably had many sex orgies, all this kind of stuff. And here he is saying it's vanity. He had feasts. He had a feast every night. He had 700 women. Do you think he just didn't point at one at the end of the day and say, hey, come with me? Really? Heck, I'm going to go so far and say he pointed to many of them and said, hey, come with me. And here he is saying all is vanity. I said of laughter, it is foolishness, and of mirth, what does it accomplish? I searched in my heart how to cheer my flesh with wine, my heart yet guiding me with wisdom, how to lay hold of folly until I might see what it was good for the sons of men, that they should do under heaven all the days of their lives. I had made myself great works. I built myself houses. I planted myself vineyards. I had made myself gardens, parks, and I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruit. I made myself pools of water to water the forest where trees were grown. He built many things, gardens. He built so many wondrous things that he could take pleasure in. I bought male servants and female servants, and had servants born in my house. I also had great possessions of herds and flocks above all those who were before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered silver and gold for myself, and the treasure of kings and of the provinces. I got myself male and female singers, and the delights of the sons of men, musical instruments of all sorts. So I was great and increased more than all who were before me in Jerusalem. My wisdom also remained with me. Whatever my eyes desired, I didn't keep from them. And that is important. Whatever my eyes desired, I didn't keep from them. Do you think he didn't have everything his heart desired? Orgies, built monuments, built gardens just to walk in and have all the fruits he wants. He had. What didn't this man have? I didn't withhold my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced because of all my labor, and this was my portion from all my labor. Then I looked at all the works that my hands had worked, and at the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity, and a chasing after wind, and there was no profit under the sun. You know, in my life, I haven't seen hardly 1/4 of what he has seen, what he has done. And yet, here he is saying, all is vanity, it's worthless, it's meaningless. I turned to myself to consider wisdom and madness and folly, for what can the king's successor do? Just that which has been done long ago. That I saw that wisdom excels folly as far as light excels darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, and the fool walks in darkness, and yet I perceive that one event happens to them all. Then I said in my heart, as it happens to the fool, so will happen to even me. And why was I even more wise? Then I said in my heart that this is also vanity. Why become wise? And this is what he's saying to himself. Why become wise if I'm going to die just like the foolish man? This makes no sense. Why would I build all these monuments just to die like these foolish men? My fate is just the same as theirs. I'm building all this. I'm having all this. I have so much wealth, and yet I'm going to die and leave it to somebody that's not as wise as I am. And it's driving him mad. You'll see that through all this book, it's driving him absolutely mad. that he is making all this stuff for him, and one day he's going to die and leave it to some fool. For of the wise man, even as of the fool, there is no memory forever. Since in the days to come, all that have been long forgotten, indeed, the wise man must die just like the fool. So I hated life. Excuse me? What did he just say? So I hated life. This man was given everything. We just went through what he was given, all that he's done. And here he is, chapter 17, verse 1, saying, verse 17, sorry. So I hated life, because the work that is worked under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and a chasing after wind. I hated all my labor in which I labored under the sun, because I must leave it to the man who comes after me. See, it's driving him absolutely mad. Who knows whether he will be a wise man or a fool, yet he will have rule over all my labor in which I have labored, in which I have shown myself wise under the sun. His also is vanity. What a statement. Therefore I began to cause my heart to despair concerning all the labor in which I had labored under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is with wisdom, with knowledge and with skillfulness, yet he shall leave it for his portion to a man who has not labored for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what does a man have of all his labor and of the striving of his heart, in which he labors under the sun? For all his days are sorrow, and his travail is grief. Yes, even in the night his heart takes no rest. This also is vanity. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink and make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it is from the hand of God. For who can eat or who can enjoy more than I? For to the man who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy. For to the sinner he gives travail to gather and to heap up, and then he may give him who pleases God. This also is vanity and chasing after the wind. God gives wisdom to those who please him. And that's one of the important things that we must see here. Solomon was pleasing the Lord at the beginning of his life, and I need to turn the AC on. It is hot here. Just give me a second. Okay. For everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, and a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. And a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to loose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. What he didn't mention there is a time to die. And he will. But there is a time to die. If you think that you're going to escape it, it's just not possible. Death is not an accident. It's it's an appointment. Death is not an accident, it's an appointment. And there is a time when it will happen to all of us. What profit has he who works in that which he labors? I have seen the burden which God has given to the sons of men to be afflicted. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in their hearts. And this is why we say as Christians, and I don't like church talk. I really don't. So some of the lingo I want to get away from. But a lot of the church lingo says this is why God has set eternity in our hearts. And it comes from this passage here. We were meant to live forever, because sin entered the world, we are now destined to die. And that's a good thing, because we don't want to live in this sinful state forever, because then, oh my gosh, that would be just awful. So we are determined to die so that our spirit may leave this body that's full of death. So that when we're in heaven, we will gain a new body, one that's perfect. Yet so that man can't find out the work that God has done from the beginning even to the end. I know that there is nothing better for them than to rejoice and to do good as long as they live. Also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy good in his labor is the gift of God. If you have a job that you like and brings you a little bit of pleasure, I know working's not great, but it brings you a little bit of pleasure, you go home and you eat and you laugh, that is the purpose of life, as far as Solomon is concerned, and he was the wisest man that ever lived, so maybe we should listen to him. Maybe gaining all this wealth is not good for us. I believe some people can handle it, but I believe a lot of people can't. I know that whatever God does, it shall be forever. Nothing can be added to it, nor anything taken from it, and God has done it, that men should fear before him. That which has been long ago, and that which has been long ago. God seeks again that which is passed away. Wherever I saw under the sun in the place of justice, that wickedness was there. And in the place of righteousness, that wickedness was there. I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time, there is a purpose, and for every work. I said in my heart, as for the sons of men, God tests them, so that they may see that they themselves are like animals. For that which happens to the sons of men happens to the animals. Even one thing happens to them, as one dies, so the other dies. Yet they have all one breath, and man has no advantage over the animals, for all is vanity. All go to one place, all are the dust, and all turn to dust again. Who knows the spirit of man, whether he goes upward into the spirit of the animal, whether it goes downward to the earth? Therefore I saw that there was nothing better that a man should rejoice in his works, for that his portion, for who can bring him to see what it will be after him. He's saying even we don't have any advantage over the animals, which I disagree with, really do. And we can tell by Solomon that not everything that he says is true here. And that's the most important thing that we must see from this book, is that this is man's wisdom, this is not God's wisdom, and that he says things that are just untrue. Men and women have the ability to think, rationalize, and all this kind of stuff. The animals don't. But what Solomon is trying to say here is that death happens for the animal and for us. So there's no advantage. So what he's saying is actually true, but I disagree with him saying that there is no advantage at all. The last thing we're going to do is Proverbs 22. And again, Solomon wrote Proverbs probably early in his life when he was serving the Lord, but Ecclesiastes is later in his life when he has completely walked away. Now, he says serve God at the end, and I think at the very last days he came back to the Lord. I believe that. But I think for a long time in his life, his long old life, he did not even think about the Lord, honestly. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, and the rod of discipline drives it far from him. So the rod of discipline. So there you go. You got to spank your children whenever they get out of hand. Said Solomon himself. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for everything that you've given us. Help us understand what we just read, and may we take the wisdom of Solomon and his latter years, what he warns us about, may we stay away. May you help us today and speak to us today as we go on through this life, that we may look to you instead of riches, instead of the lust of our eyes, instead of all the food in the world that could bring us pleasure. We know from Solomon's experience, and even a little bit of mine, that does not bring you happiness. And that's the point, is that you put all these rules on us that we don't understand until we experience it for ourselves. You said don't multiply yourselves wives, and it doesn't make sense. Well, now it does. We see Solomon. He was depressed out of his mind. Said all is vanity. And that's just one example. May we follow your laws knowing that it does us good, not that it puts us in bondage. or it's the opposite. It actually frees us. Help us and be with us today. In your name I pray. Amen. All right, guys, if you would like to listen to this podcast, if you came in late, it is up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that kind of good stuff. It's right here. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and even Deezer. There's a lot of stuff. I'll see you guys later, and I'll be with you tomorrow. And love you guys. Be with you. So see you later. Bye.